Hello everyone and welcome to another video of the Sky Channel. Now we got a new ant that just came out, Black Knight, and I know a lot of people probably would have questions about it and would be interested in knowing whether it's one worth investing in or not. So I'm going to go over some of its skills and then you guys can decide if it's worth it or not. I also want to mention that we are going to try a different aspect ratio because I notice a lot of people are using their mobile phones to watch the video. So if you do prefer this aspect ratio, please let me know so that I can make sure that I try to make future videos in this aspect ratio. And by the way, the aspect ratio is the way it's appearing on your screen. Essentially, the way we are doing it now, it should show you more of the content on the screen on your mobile phone instead of seeing, a lot of stuff on the sides that you possibly are used to seeing in our previous videos. But before we get started, I want to give a big thank you to Aptoide. You can get between 10 to 35% bonuses on in-game purchases, and if you are doing so on the February 20th, the minimum would actually be 20%. So do check out the video that I've shared in the description below. Use our promo code, which changes pretty regularly, but right now it's Sky5, so keep an eye on any changes and you'll be able to benefit from Aptoide. Please also join our Discord and Instagram so that you can follow along the different things that we have going on. Okay, back to the video. Now, they actually made it pretty simple and straightforward for you to check out here, the main skills right here. But what we're going to do is we're going to go into the ant and we're going to check out some of the other skills first. So we know the standard 120% attack and defense, which is standard on new ants. There's a 45% increase in guardian health, which is pretty cool. And if you look here, there's another 45% increase in health, which is pretty cool as well, but there's also combat speed plus 40, and I'll tell you why that's relevant very shortly. Now let's go back to that interesting screen where we can just go through the different skills. So this is the skill 2, and it's very interesting because it's giving the ability to last much longer. So if you look at that, the damage taken by its squad is significantly reduced by 45%, and the effect reduces 3% every time the squad takes damage. And when the effect goes to 0, it deals 850% damage to all enemy squads. Okay, 45% reduction in damage taken definitely helps you live much longer. Now, it does keep reducing every time you take damage. So the next time you take damage is only going to reduce it by 42%, all the way up until 0 after 15 attacks. Now, my assumption is that you do need to be alive after 15 attacks for you to deal that 850% damage. I could be wrong, I don't know for sure, but my assumption is that if the ant dies before the effect is reduced to 0, you won't release the 850%. Though it's very possible that they may adjust it or they might have put it in that when the ant is dying, it's just going to release it anyway. I don't think that's the case, but perhaps it could be. So overall, the idea for this skill is to allow you to live longer, which I think it does with that 45% reduction. Skill number 5, 60% chance to increase the trigger chance of the skills of 2 of our other friendly squads, and it doesn't mention specifically guardians, and that's for an obvious reason which we'll cover later, by 5%. And the damage rate of the next damage skill is increased by 150%. So 150% increase in damage is outstanding, but it seems like it's only doing it for that one single attack that the squad does next. So it's not like a one that remains along and can help multiple attacks. I guess it's just that one single attack. The increase in chance of 5% is very helpful, though I will say that it seems to be more helpful for ants that have a low chance of triggering, because let's say that an ant skill had a possibility of triggering of 5% and dealing, let's say, a ton of damage. The extra 5% here would actually kind of be doubling the probability of attacks. But if it was, let's say, 95% chance and you're increasing it by 5 to make it 100, 95% is already pretty high and you're probably going to hit almost every turn, so the 5% doesn't matter much. So it's very helpful. It's even more helpful if the chance is low, because then you're getting a much higher proportional chance of doing the damage. The effect is stackable and lasts 2 rounds. So remember that this ant does have extra combat speed, which means that you would probably be doing this before your other ants, right? If you're using, let's say, certain shooters that don't give extra combat speed, and your guardians and shooters are normally the same combat speed, means that this goes first. which means that you get the extra 5% chance. And the fact that it's stackable in the last 2 rounds means that you could have stacked it up to 10%. And if you're releasing it each round, you could have that extra 10% for the rest of the battle because of the way it works. Now, the extra 150% damage, I do not think that would stack given the fact that it mentioned specifically the next damage skill. So my assumption is that when you do that single damage, this gets reset to 0% extra damage. But if it were, let's say, the damage rate of the squad increases by 150%, I would say that then the stackable would make sense and you'd be talking a 300% extra damage, which would be absolutely crazy. So I can understand why it's that only for a single attack. So still pretty good, right? An extra increase in chance of triggering and also an extra damage definitely makes things quite sweeter. So the second skill was all about living longer. The fifth skill is all about dealing a lot of damage and helping your other ants do that damage. And let's look at the eighth skill. During the battle, critical damage resistance of all of our squads goes up by 25%, which I can see being helpful, especially if the opponent is using certain ants that increase critical damage. But look at the next part. So every time it releases a combat skill 5 times, and this is for all of the squads in the troop, there's a 60% chance to silence a random enemy squad and a 30% chance to disarm a random enemy squad, and these states are independently determined. And of course, that lasts for 1 round. Now, it says that they're independently determined. It means that you could be silencing one squad and then you could be disarming another squad, or potentially you could be silencing and disarming the same squad. Now, you may be wondering what is silence and what is disarm. I did get a question about these states in one of my videos as well. So let's go into certain ants and see what it's all about. Okay. Golden Venom, I believe Golden Venom does have the ability to silence, and we'll see it right here. So silencing means disabling combat skills. And then if you want to know what disarm means, we will go into Shield Warden, and over here we'll be seeing what it is. Disarming means unable to launch normal attacks. Now, the reason why I actually went into the ant is because that's how I personally validate it. Sometimes in the new ants, they actually don't write what the debuff does. So what I do is I just go into an older ant where this debuff was new. And of course, over there, they do describe it. Okay, so that covers this ant, and you can see that, as I mentioned before, it has certain abilities to last longer because it is a frontline ant. So of course, that's something that you would expect from a frontline ant. Then of course, it is giving the ability for our ants to do certain extra damage, increasing their skill damage, but also increasing the trigger rate, which is helpful. And then the 8th skill comes in and gives you a certain critical damage resistance, but also causes these sort of debuffs to the enemy, potentially making them unable to launch normal attacks as well as skill attacks for 1 round. So let's talk about where they fit in. So you can see the recommended lineups that the devs have suggested. Usually they are fairly accurate, so do check them out. I'll go through them fairly quickly. So we can see over here, they're talking about FC and LS. I can see why that makes sense. FC has the ability to reduce skill damage in the first 4 rounds, so I can see how helping the frontline live even longer and therefore surviving those 15 hits and being able to deliver that 850% damage to all squads can be particularly useful, because remember, that's like 2,550% damage. So you want to make sure that you do deliver it. And other than that, FC does have abilities of increasing skill damage. In particular, that would be for LS because it's in the back line, and LS is all about skill damage, so having it there makes a ton of sense. This one seems to be a possibly weaker alternative. I would say FC and LS is definitely better, but in case you don't have FC, they're recommending you can use Crimson Fragger as well. I would say probably not as cool, but okay. I can sort of see how it makes sense because CF does do a reasonable amount of damage too. You can also see that in the mixed squads, we were using Gladiator Mantis. And here, of course, the recommended was to make sure that you do get this one because it's actually increasing damage and reducing damage taken as well. And the other one was this one. In the last 4 rounds, it greatly increases your skill damage, and hopefully you will be lasting longer with this ant. And then there are also guardian options, and of course you can see here Hairy Panther. I think it greatly benefits from the ability mentioned where it actually increases the chance of triggering by possibly up to 10%. As you can see here, it's 60%. So an extra 10% is very helpful. And of course here as well 60%. And the other thing is that Hairy Panther does deal a lot of damage. So having the extra 150% would be particularly helpful. Again, Ata as well. Ata does deal a lot of damage, and we all know that. You can see how it's doing a reasonably high amount of damage, and over here it's doing a ton of damage to all squads. So I can see how, imagine if it gets that 150% damage bonus for its skill 8, that would be quite outstanding. And this one again seems like a cheaper alternative to the other one that was recommended. As you know, Leaf Devour does a lot of damage as well, so I can see how that's beneficial. But one thing I do want to talk about is the fact that, you know, the jungle ants are coming out, and you're probably wondering, how does this fit in with the jungle ants? So Saharan Silver Ant is all about skill damage and doing a ton of skill damage. Although the individual attacks aren't extremely high, it relies on doing a lot of different attacks, right? So even in skill 2, it's actually doing 2 attacks and not 1. My assumption is that the skill damage bonus will likely only apply to the first one out of these 2. That's the way I read it. But of course, I'd say it definitely benefits from the extra skill damage. Now, I will also take note to the fact that Saharan Silver Ant does have reasonably high chances, but of course the extra possible 10% won't hurt. That being said, if it were extremely low chances, my assumption is it would be much more beneficial. Now, I would have loved to tell you how it interacts with the jungle guardian ants as well. However, I haven't yet gone into a lot of detail into the jungle guardian ants. So hopefully when I make the video on jungle guardian ants, I will take a look and see if the Black Knight seems to be a very good fit with it. So I'll probably add it in that one if it makes a lot of sense. Okay, so this is the quick video on Black Knight. I hope you enjoy it, or I hope it gave you certain information to help you make a more informed decision. I will say that, of course, it is extremely new, so I don't have any battle reports that I can show you. But either way, I hope that you find something helpful in this video. If you like it, please subscribe to our channel, check out our other videos. Do join our Discord. Please follow our Instagram. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye.